Okay, welcome back to part 2 now of the Beatles Aldershot concert poster from December 9th of 1961. And part 1, I spent a lot of time explaining all about the poster itself and various background information and so forth. And here in part 2, I'm going to explain the story behind the fiasco. How can you have a concert poster for the Beatles? Even in 61 they were a hot combo with only 18 bodies showing up. That's just insanely terrible business, right? What happened? Well, luckily, Sam Leach, the promoter, who, by the way, promoted the Beatles about over 50 times by his own account, wrote a book called The Birth of the Beatles, and here it is. And there's his name across the top, Sam Leach. And this book is just rich with stories about the early Beatles. So you've probably seen it, may even have it if you're a fan. It's really a good book. But, you know, the story, I won't obviously elaborate too much, run through it pretty quickly for you, but it's a really simple case of advertising failed Sam Leach. He had run an ad in the Aldershot News, placed it a week ahead of time. So it was supposed that's how word got out largely back then in newspaper ads and music paper ads and stuff. And he sent them a check, right? Well, guess what? If you're a brand new customer, they wait for the check to clear. And they didn't tell Sam that. So he thought the ad ran. They didn't even bother to call him to tell him, you know, first-timers need to either pay cash or pay way in advance for the check to clear, and the ad didn't run. So the Beatles, you know, they got up at dawn on February 9th, 2 cars, because it was the 4 Beatles plus Sam Leach, a couple of assistants and so forth. 2 cars, 9-hour drive all the way down to Aldershot, south or southwest of London. Just a heck of a long drive. They pull into town, and holy cats, there's nobody there because, you know, the ads didn't run. So what a frustrating time for the Beatles and their crew, just trying to break through into show business, you know. And it doesn't help that Aldershot itself was like this sleepy military town, nothing going on at all, even on a Saturday night. Just like, you know, the streets were practically empty, and it was cold as heck. There was a blizzard practically blowing, and, you know, in the middle of winter, well, December 9th, not quite officially winter yet, but it was just miserable conditions. And, you know, but the Beatles soldiered on, much to their credit, their professionalism, which they showed their entire career and beyond. They soldiered on professionally, and if one person showed up, they probably would have played the gig anyway. But they did run around town a little bit, go across the street, go to pubs, telling people, hey, come on over and see the Beatles and all this, you know, in the afternoon, telling them, I think they even told people just come in for free, don't worry about the charge. You know, they somehow made a go of the evening with 18 people dancing. Sam Leach, the promoter, talks about how he spread out the dancers on the floor, so they make it look like a bigger crowd, but how do you put a pig on lipstick, right? And Leach actually has a very funny line in his book, a very funny quote. He says that, you know, like, before showtime, half an hour or whatever, you know, the knock on the door, he opens it, and 3 girls, you know, are standing there all covered up from the blizzard and saying, is this where the Beatles are playing? And Leach goes, yeah, this is it, come on in. He goes, and the girls say, what time do they start? And Sam said, what time would you like them to start? Which is just a hilarious line and really illustrates the smallness, if you will, of the evening. I think that's just wonderful. But, you know, the Beatles took the stage, and without Ivor J and the Jaywalkers or anybody else, they did, you know, what they probably did in Hamburg, right? Actually, they played 8 hours in Hamburg. They played 3 hours with breaks. And at some point during the evening, Leach went across the street and got chips and beer and brought it back. And the Beatles got a little looser and just, you know, got used to the circumstances. And, you know, Leach's book said they just started rocking really hard and playing great enthusiastically. And he said they played like they were playing to 4,000 people at the Palais Ballroom back home. So that's, you know, that's a real testament to the professionalism of the Beatles, and certainly played in, of course, into their later success. So after playing for about 3 hours with a, you know, a couple of breaks or whatever, the Beatles wrapped it up. And however many people were left, whether it was 14 or 16 or all 18, they really clapped loudly and really let the Beatles have it enthusiastically. At first the Beatles thought it was a joke, sarcastic applause, but then they realized these people were very sincere. Not only was the music great, but they so appreciated the Beatles soldiering on in such adverse circumstances that they clapped wildly for an encore. So the Beatles gave 18 people, or whatever the number was, an encore, and they got back up on stage and played a 10-minute version of Chuck Berry's Roll Over Beethoven, which of course would be one of the classic covers on their early albums as well. So, boy, what can you say? What a night, huh? December 9th, 1961. Just what great folklore. I'm so glad we had a photographer there to take those pictures. Otherwise it would all be just, you know, Sam Leach's memory and stuff like that. But the pictures are priceless. There's a lot more than what I showed you, by the way, and they can be found on the net. So, but the poster's the thing. This is postercentral.com, and this is just a wonderful, you know, it's a small Simple. Actually, it has a lot of different type fonts, which is nice, and the color breaks help. I've seen a lot worse, let's put it that way. But it's my favorite poster in the history of all concert giving and concert advertisements. So, hope you got something out of it. Hope you enjoyed the stories. Thanks a lot for coming by, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.